When we did strategic planning with organizational leaders of the village, there were 3 priorities identified, and they remain those same top 3 priorities. One is around the urgent and chronic need for more space for service providers. And I'll give you an example of that. Is we have, I guess about a year ago now, did a quick survey of organizations and said, if you're short on space, but not resources that you need to run programs, but if you're short on space, do this survey. One of the results from that survey was basically saying, collectively as a group of, I think it was 11 or 12 organizations that responded, said combined, we could serve 8,400 more people if we had access to the space we need to actually deliver the kinds of services that we know are needed. That's a fairly significant number. And when you think about what do those services look like, they're things like before and after school care. There's things like mental health counseling, things like drop-in places for kids to go hang who are too old for childcare, but really need something that, is fun for them, frankly, and helps keep them connected to the community. So we're doing some good work in that area, and I think a good example of that is Foundry will be a facility that brings together a variety of key partners to provide services in a really timely, co-located way. Because bottom line, that notion of single-purpose, single-story buildings is not something anybody wants in today's world where land is so expensive, not to mention the more that we can coordinate services and provide those wraparound services or that more full spectrum of what children and families need, the better. That's why space is so critical. We've done a great job in our communities across West Shore and Sooke in building more housing. And I think there's a general recognition that there's some catching up to be done around the facilities that people need, not just housing. Things like what I've mentioned, the kinds of services and places to go for kids to hang out in a safe, caring environment, etc. So the second priority, as identified by leaders of the village network, is around that notion of service coordination, right? And that need, recognizing, first of all, that there are actually, contrary to what some people might think, a fair number of services and programs going on, but often in parallel. And so, for instance, you might have a family with particular needs that are getting supported through multiple organizations that may not even necessarily know that they're working with the same clients. Right? And so we're looking at how do we create mechanisms that support the sharing of information across service providers. And a really good practical example of what the village does, and it's not rocket science, but it is such an important investment, is monthly gatherings. We call it a community of practice of frontline service providers who come together, who learn more about what their various organizations do. They troubleshoot, they bring their really tough cases to the group to say, help me think this through. Here's what we're struggling with in this particular case. And out of that comes so much good sharing and really helpful and productive leads in terms of, did you know that this existed? Or for instance, hours have shifted, or access to a certain program might have changed and not everybody knew that. So creating those time and space with intention that helps support people doing this work to do it in a way that is more coordinated. There's a good example, and that's just one. So the third priority, the Village Initiative Network, is focused on, in essence, supporting organizations and professionals to do this work. By this work, I mean the full realm of what we know is required to help support children, youth, and families across the West Shore Sooke region. And a really good example of one area that we've done some work in is around the use of data and helping support the use of data. For instance, most recently we held an event related to the release of the Adolescent Health Survey data, which is a survey that's been happening for 30 years across the province of British Columbia. Sooke School District students grades 10 to 12 participated in that provincial survey. And we basically took that regional data of here's what our kids across Sooke School District have shared through that survey mechanism. And we did two things. One, we brought it back to young people themselves to actually dig into the data. What's it telling us? What are some recommendations? What do you want to see done differently in this community to better support your health? And if you're curious, you can see what they had to say via, if you go to the homepage of the villageinitiative.ca, there's a roadmap that's related to supporting youth. Related to that, we had a second day with a community event, because again, it takes a village to help a family or to help everybody make sure that our kids thrive. And so in essence, the village came together. We had well over 100 organizational leaders from government, non-government, government agencies, etc., local governments coming together to learn more about what the Adolescent Health Survey data had to say, and to think about how do we help take action on what that data is telling us. So youth have spoken, so now what? Or so what? So we're helping support that information sharing, and then sparking the related action-focused next steps.